Good day, one and all. Today, I would like to discuss 5 reasons why Africa was allowed to be taken over by foreign groups. Mother Africa, the land where it all began. In Africa, one can find almost all sort of resource that is needed in the building of modern civilizations. So today, I will discuss these 5 reasons based on my study, my analysis, and my on-ground research in Mother Africa. So without any further ado, let's get this thing started. You dig? So, reason number 1 for Africa being overtaken by foreign groups is that we, as African peoples, are a naturally spiritual people, right? We can see this all over the world, from the motherland to Asia, Europe, and the United States of America. We can see in the ghettos of America churches on every corner. This attests to the fact that we are a spiritual people, that it's in us. It's just natural. So that I say that to say that when other groups came, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the British, Greeks, Romans, all the way to the Greeks and Romans, when these other groups, but in particular, we'll focus on one of the first groups, which were the Portuguese. When they came with this spirituality, this religion that they got, the spirituality that they got from Africans, that was taken from the spiritual systems of Africa, that was developed in the Nile Valley regions, right? They took those concepts, took certain points of those concepts, took them, and then created this religion called Christianity. And then after creating that religion, they then came back to the continent as missionaries, and they introduced this new philosophy to the Africans. And us Africans, being spiritual people naturally, we gravitated to it. Even though we had our own spiritual systems, when it was introduced to us as something new, we in a sense, because our spirituality, we gravitated towards this. And this was one of our biggest detriments, because this allowed these foreign invaders who had other plans. They had an ulterior motive for wanting to bring this religion to the Africans. The ulterior motive was to conquer and to take over and take control of Africa and its natural resources. That was their motive. But they needed a way to get in there, so they used the spiritual angle, because they saw that we were a spiritual people from their past conquests of other Europeans coming into the motherland and seeing all these temples and things that we had constructed to praise our deities. So they took advantage of that. And that was how they were able to come in. And as a quote that I've heard, they came in with the Bible, right? And we had the land and the resources, and They left with the land and the resources, and all we had was the Bible. So that's reason number one. All right. Reason number two, we are naturally compassionate and accepting people. And we can see this all over, okay? Recent, right? In recent times, when all these other groups of immigrants came into America, we, the African peoples of America, were the first ones to accept them. We were more accepting to these groups than the Europeans, than the Caucasians, because the Caucasians practiced racism against these groups where we were accepting. You can take it to the prison system, right? Which I know a little bit about, okay? One can see, even in the prison system, it's racially divided. The whites are on this side, the Latinos are on this side, the blacks are on this side. But then you have this group called others. And do you know who the others are usually allowed to go with, or who usually accepts the others? It's the Africans. Why? Because we are naturally accepting people. We accept all these other groups to come up into our communities that the the Europeans would not do. We allow them to come into our communities in America, set up shop, and make millions and billions of dollars selling us products that guess what? That they reap the benefits off of, but they do nothing to contribute back into the communities in which they got their resources. And we allow this because we are accepting people naturally. The LGBT movement, we accept them. We accept the feminist movement. We are accepting people. So that is something that was natural to us. And when these other groups came into Mother Africa, right, we offered them a peaceful, for the most part, a peaceful entrance into Mother Africa, because we are an accepting people, okay? So that's reason number two. And that was a detriment because, as I said in reason number one, these other groups came with ulterior motives, okay? So let's move on to reason number three, right? We had so much abundance of natural resources that we weren't pressed for it like these other groups, right? We was like, man, we had everything we needed. We had all the fruits and vegetables we needed in abundance. We had all the metals and, the oils and cocoa and all these other resources that we had naturally. We had it in abundance, so we wasn't really tripping or pressed for these things. So when these other groups came in and was like, oh, we want to trade, we want to have some of these things, they was hungry for these things because in their country they was hungry for these natural resources, because in their respective countries there was a lack of those natural resources, as there is till this day, which is why Africa is now under the threat, are basically, it's almost done already, I would say, based on my trips to Africa, are under the threat of a new foreign group of people who are coming to dominate. And that's the Chinese, right? Because the Chinese are over there, but their method is much different than the European. They're coming in and saying, okay, rather than just coming in and taking, we're going to offer you something. We're going to help build your infrastructure. We're going to create products for you in exchange for your natural resources. So basically, take it back to when Africa was conquered, right? Since we had these in abundance, these natural resources in abundance, we was like, oh, come in. No, you can have it. You can have some of it, not knowing there are ulterior motives. When they got a taste of it, they was like, we want more. We want it all. These Africans, they ain't really tripping off of it. We just gonna have it all. And that's what they did. They took and colonized and got it all. And It's still happening till this day. So that's reason number 3. Now, we're going on to reason number 4. The Africans of that time were ignorant to the true nature of the white race. What do I mean by that? We were ignorant to their true nature in a sense that we didn't understand that these people are naturally aggressive, are naturally, I guess I can say conquerors, right? Because they're naturally inclined to want to conquer and want to control and want to dominate, right? And so we African peoples didn't realize that until it was too late, until we were being put in to the bottoms of ships and shipped to the Americas. And even someone may say, well, Africans gave their own people up for slavery. True, that may be true that certain Africans did give their people up for slavery, but they didn't understand the true nature of the European, and they didn't understand their form of slavery, right? Because they will say, well, Africans also enslaved each other. And that is true too historically, but our form of slavery was different, okay? So with one African tribe would war with another African tribe over territory or some other reasons, when one tribe was defeated, they would take prisoners, right? And so basically these prisoners would be considered slaves. But the thing is, they weren't treated like animals. They were still allowed to be treated like human beings and have the rights of human beings. The only thing was they were restricted to that tribe. And so they would serve a term, and after that term of slavery was up, they were allowed an option, okay? They would say, okay, look, you can become a part of our tribe now, and we will give you would get to marry our wives, you get to marry into our culture, would give you some land, you get access to our resources, or you have the option to go back to your tribe, or go create your own tribe, or just basically you have an option to go do your own thing. And so that was our form of slavery. That is how we looked at slavery. We didn't look at it as a chattel type of thing that the European created, where we was basically considered animals. Like, I would say even worse than animals, okay? Because Europeans today treat their animals better than they treat African human beings in some instances, or maybe most instances, right? So they didn't understand that. They didn't understand that we're going to basically be considered like a furniture or a tool to Europeans. That they was going to do all these atrocities that they did to us during the times of physical slavery. We Africans did not understand that. So we was like, okay, well, go ahead, you can have them, and we're assuming that once it's done, that they'll either come back or they'll be allowed to stay there and be a part of that society. So we didn't understand that. We didn't understand their true nature until later, right? And so that's number 4. So last, but certainly not least, we became too tribal. We became too tribal. And we are very tribal to this day. Okay? And that tribalism allowed for us Africans to be conquered and divided. You know, you separate and you divide. Because when a people is divided, they are easy to be conquered, as opposed to when a people are all on one accord. Just like what happened in the beginning of America. They were divided. And this was the reason why the British from Europe and England were able to control the Americans, because they were divided. Okay? But once the people in America decided that, hey, we have a common enemy and we need to get, in order for us to overcome this common enemy, we need to put aside our differences and come together, right? It was only then that they were able to come together and go to war with the British and defeat them and take control of America, and thus we have the United States of America today. And even after that, we became divided again. Well, not we, because we were slaves, but Europeans in America became divided again with the North and the South, the Confederate, right? And what happened was, until that was solved with the Civil War, America was not able to realize its greatness. And after that Civil War happened and a party was defeated, and the United States of America was the byproduct, then and only then was America able to achieve its greatness. So these are the 5 reasons why Mother Africa was allowed to be taken over by foreign groups, and the reason why it is being taken over to this day by another foreign group, which are the Chinese. And the only way that we can prevent this from happening, is we need to get past our tribalism in Africa and realize that if we don't come together in the near future, it may be too late. Okay? So when you have leaders like Muammar Gaddafi, who was trying to create a united Africa and have it all under the gold standard, he was taken out because that is a threat to the powers that be, the Western powers. They couldn't have that. They couldn't have a united Africa, because a united Africa under the gold standards is going to want to control its own destiny, right? And that would be a threat to the Western powers. And then when you look at brothers like Malema in South Africa, and he's saying that, hey, this is our land. We naturally have a right to this land, and that we are tired of being subjected to a foreign entity. And now he's saying that we need to come together and take back what's rightfully ours, our land, and kick these foreigners out. He's a threat. So this is what needs to happen, though. If we are, as an African people, to be great again, we must first come under a common agenda, right? We don't all have to agree, but we all have to get on a common agenda, a common code, in which we finally decide that this is our land, and that since this is our land, we should be in control of the natural resources, and we should benefit the African people there and in the diaspora should benefit from these natural resources that come from this land, first and foremost. And we can do, once we get that underway, we can then say, okay, now we can manufacture the raw materials into products ourselves and do trade with the rest of the world. But we are in control of our land, of our destiny, not other groups. We call the shots, right? And that's the only way that Mother Africa can be saved from the inevitable. Hotep, Black Power.